Deep down in every person, there is a secret desire to break off the chains that bind us to our familiar everyday life. We often move through life with a blindfold, making unconscious steps that ever further distract us from the kind of life we truly want to live. There are different ways out of such calamity, but there is a group of people that seeks to break those chains through experience of adventures. If we wait until we are fully ready and prepared, we'll be waiting for the rest of our life. We'll compare off-roading or overlanding against sailing or cruising, for those souls with a burning fire for those ultimate adventures of their life. Hi, my name is Victor. You're watching Gear into Adventure, and today I'm here with George, my comrade. We've been together on trips quite a few times, and finally he invited me to his yacht to experience his other passion that I haven't been able to.
Hey guys, so welcome to my boat Nimue. Victor is still having issues pronouncing that, but I think you'll learn by the end of this trip.
So tell us about how did you get into kind of off-road and sailing at the same time, because the whole kind of purpose of this video is to compare both, like how do you experience, because most of us we only get to experience off-road, whereas you have both, and how do they compare, in which way they're similar, in which way they're different, and maybe different feelings they give you. So let's start with how did you get into off-road?
So basically I wasn't really an outdoorsy person before I was about 20 years old, and my occupation, I started working as a geological engineer, and that entitles me being out in the field quite often, and that includes some remote areas, and basically that's being outdoors. And sometimes you do get to drive some off-road vehicles for work there. I think first time I got stuck in the mud was in my work vehicle actually. That was quite funny, but anyways. And that basically led me to being actually interested in the whole off-roading thing, and that's how I basically started and got myself the first off-roading vehicle.
But that was actually, I don't think you mentioned, that was in Russia.
Yes.
Off-road over there at North. Well, you can explain what it's like. It's not like even here.
Well, basically, yeah, originally I'm from Russia, from central region. I'm from Moscow, but I used to work on projects throughout the entire country, pretty much, and some of them, yeah, like past polar circle, some of them are in deserty setting, but yeah, there's quite a variety there. It's not like, I would say, actually in Canada, the scenery is quite similar. It's also everywhere from very cold regions to warmer regions, so it's not that different really.
Well, the very north part, the BC part here is more mountainous obviously than the central and the western Russia, so that makes it quite different. And that's why you actually wanted to come to Canada, to here in particular spot, right? You wanted all these Rocky Mountains, all this beauty.
Yeah, I'll just briefly touch base on that. That's basically my whole reasoning for coming to Vancouver specifically, was that I really was into mountain sports and the mountain outdoors and the ocean, and I wanted to be somewhere where I'm really close to that. So that's how I ended up moving to Vancouver, where I've been for 7 years now.
Hey, all this fake news, tell me, what is the use? Tell me, there's no more compassion, no. Come and find me under these layers, among these taxpayers. There's no satisfaction, no. I
have you sailed in back in Russia?
Not really, no, I never had. And actually, I guess part of me being really interested in that was quite a few documentaries I watched, like those Jacques-Yves Cousteau films. And then I guess my family background kind of has to do with it to some extent. My grandfather was a vice admiral, so we kind of I had lots of things like his old nautical binoculars when I was a kid, and I was really fascinated by all that. And actually, I never really sailed in Russia because around Moscow there's no huge water bodies where you can actually have a proper boat. But the day I came to Vancouver, I was riding a taxi across Falls Creek, and I saw all those sailboats which are moored there, and I was like, yeah, I want one of those. Like once I'm like all settled, I want to get into this really. And that's essentially what happened eventually.
In that regard, yeah, I think we grew up watching exactly the same channels, because back in the beginning of 90s in Russia, we only had maybe 10 channels. Well, maybe in Moscow you had some more, but I'm from Far East. But I remember absolutely loving Jacques Cousteau, Discovery Channel stuff, whatever was translated to Russian. So, and we're also same age, basically, just like half a year difference. So we kind of grew up in the same atmosphere, watching same nature stuff. So it's interesting how you had a turn already at that time, earlier, into it, whereas yeah, I've been kind of glued to office life, computer games, that sort of thing. Like I came into it much later here in Canada. So is this your first boat?
No, basically the first one I got was a smaller one. By the way, this is a 36-footer boat. It's a Catalina 36. First one I got was actually 25-footer. I got a really great deal on her, and basically I knew nothing at that point. So basically I passed that mandatory test for pleasure craft operator card, but that doesn't really teach you how to sail. It just teaches you safety stuff and the rules of the road and these things. So what we've done, that the previous owner who was selling it to me just took me out for about maybe a couple of hours. He just showed me how to hoist the sails, how to run the engine, and that was it. From there I was pretty much learning by experience only. And on that 25-footer, it's obviously a bit simpler because you don't get those huge loads on everything from high winds. So it's really easier to learn on, but still it was a little bit funny how without any particular instruction, when you try to do stuff, especially sometimes you get caught in weather which you're not expecting.
But also remember you telling me, just even doing things around the boat, or I guess sailing as well, you've been watching lots of other YouTube channels actually for that.
Yes, absolutely. I think the most useful information I was able to find, and what actually made it possible for me to teach myself how to sail, was actually watching stuff on YouTube. There's several great channels. I remember one of them is from a magazine, Yachting Monthly or something like that. They actually have a professional instructional videos which you can watch. They are very detailed and
like as a tutorial.
Yes,
so you
exactly.
can like follow.
It's not like somebody's vlog or anything. It's actually like educational video. They show you all this stuff. They show you diagrams and all these things. So it's almost, I would say, as good as actually taking a class. Other than obviously nobody can check if you have understood it or not. You just go out there and you try. If you didn't, you'll have to redo it anyways. You'll know.
Well, you have engineering background. Obviously, you're very technically savvy about things. You know, you have that mindset. Do you think it's helpful versus, let's say, me being an artist or someone else, our profession, to get into sailing and deal with technical aspects of, you know, things breaking down, changing things, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that's actually plays quite a significant role in all of this, because yeah, some knowledge of general physics is obviously helpful when you're trying to understand how wind works, how currents work, and all these things, right? And then, of course, the boat is full of different systems: mechanical, electrical, engine, plumbing, and stuff like that. So, of course, being an engineer, it's probably easier to comprehend the information which you read, and trying to fix stuff, because obviously this is not a new boat. It's almost as old as I am, or you are, so it tends to break down every now and then, or maybe a little bit more often than I would have it. But yeah, still I've been able to fix many things on my own, and sometimes on the go even. In this aspect, it's actually, we're starting comparing with off-roading a little bit, I guess. So it's a little bit probably easier to do stuff on the boat, because everything does not have such a high tolerance. It's not designed for high speeds or high power. So it's all can be kind of mended together, or even like glued together, stuff like that, right? So there's lots of wood used, which is easier to work on than, let's say, fabricate something from metal. In that sense, it's probably more user-friendly to work on than, let's say, an off-roading truck.
So there is the term overlanding, and for some of you that may not know who are into sailing, overlanding is basically long distance vehicle based travel. You're living out of vehicles. Ideally, you go into remote paths. Sometimes it doesn't happen frequently, but somewhere along the way you have to use 4x4. But it's not fully necessary. Some people cross countries and continents and take trips 2 years at a time and so on. And that's what overlanding is on the land. What's the term for the world kind of sailing, or this long distance self-sufficient traveling?
So for sailing, essentially, all recreational sailing would be either racing, where people just participate in certain events, right, and they try to be the fastest boat, essentially. Or when you're just trying to explore or live out of the boat, or just do long-term trips, that's usually just referred as cruising. So that we can refer to that as
and when you cross the ocean?
Yeah, obviously, that's also cruising. That's just depends. There's some cross-ocean races. There's everybody probably knows Volvo Ocean Race. Everybody follows those like super fancy, expensive, and fast boats. But
it's not the same, because there are people following you. There is always that search and rescue handy, like you know,
yeah,
you're being monitored.
Race.
This is not like you're alone crossing the ocean like some people, which I have no idea. You need like so much courage to do that. Like, to me, it seems crossing ocean on a boat is way more dangerous, and things can go potentially very wrong compared to like vehicle-based travel, where the danger is more about people factor, like crossing borders, going into third world countries, that kind of dangerous. Whereas boat, it's the elements. As soon as the storm starts, like, and if you're not doing the right thing, I guess, you're done, right? Like, how does it work when you're out with the elements?
Well, first of all, I don't have any experience myself of ocean crossings. This boat is not designed for it. It's what they call coastal cruiser. So it's designed to the mode of travel where overnight you're stopped in some protected bay, and you have a chance, obviously, to fix things. You're always somewhat close to civilization, so you can get help if you need to. But normally, the general practice is that those boats people use to cross oceans, especially with one boat, they're just way more sturdy to begin with. And then, since the boat is much simpler mechanically than any off-roading vehicle or overlanding vehicle, it's also not that many things can go wrong. It's just huge hunks of metal and fiberglass. They're really sturdy. So normally the practice is, and I actually even noticed that myself, so the weakest point in the boat when it comes to some stormy weather is the crew. So you begin to freak out way before stuff actually starts breaking. I've never had anything break just because of the stormy weather. Just because something is really old and rusty, yes, but not really because of high loads. And that's what people usually do, at least what I know they do. When the storm comes, you just reduce the sail, you just set them to minimal area so that the sails actually keep the boat on course. And you just go down below, you button the hatches, you close everything, and you just wait for it to be over. You just hold tight, and the boat handles herself pretty good, actually. That's what normally happens. Yeah, it sounds scary.
You gotta get used to it for sure.
Oh, for sure. No, I'm not used to it, and I am not myself certain yet that I want to do it, like as in crossing oceans. I'm more
Well,
of a...
it's not in this boat for sure.
No, and in general, even I guess that's a separate question already. But I really like the change in scenery. I am not very excited about just observing the horizon for 2-3 weeks in a row without anything else. So I actually do like coastal cruising, and that's what I will stick to, I guess, until I run out of coast to explore, which is gonna take a while with all the BC and Alaska coast we have here. So.
California and Mexico. Well, you could go all the way to Argentina too, potentially. Just
Well,
coastal
that's
cruising.
the thing. Once you're past Cape Flattery, which is Olympic Peninsula, it's more like an offshore crossing. There's no hiding spots there. You have to sail 24/7. All those rivers, they normally have sandbars which build up huge waves, and they're not safe to enter really. So once you're out in the ocean, in the Pacific, you have to go all the way to California, basically.
But at least you have a view constantly.
Well, yeah, you can
To-
see a
to the
shoreline,
side,
but you have to stay at least 10 miles off to avoid this building waves, because they become steeper as you come close to the shore.
I see. So not really close.
No, no. It's just
it's
a-
like the horizon here
Yes.
in the distance.
And the further you are from shore when you're sailing the ocean, the safer you are. Because that's where the reefs are, that's where the currents start. It all becomes pretty screwed up, right? So it's safer when you're just offshore, like way offshore.
Looks like you need to set up like some overlanders do. They basically buy a truck on on the continent, outfit it, go to another continent. Well, you need lots of resources for that, obviously. But some people, you know, when there's a will, there's a way kind of thing, as they say. Some people actually do that. I met some people that have like, oh, I have a car in Africa, I have a car in Australia, and whenever they feel like a certain year, like, oh, I want to explore for a couple of months this continent more, they just fly in there, they have a ready rig, and they just go.
There's a couple of ways you can do it for sailing purposes. First and most obvious and easy ones, and that's that many people do, you can just charter a boat where you need. It's gonna cost some money, but let's say if you compare this 2-3 weeks vacation to whatever you spend on the boat in a year of ownership when you just own a boat, it's actually comparable. The downside of that, from what I see, is that you get a boat which is not known to you. Some of those rental boats are neglected, they don't really maintain them properly. Plus, it's lots of it is about how well you know your particular boat. I basically have done some maintenance on almost every piece of equipment and rigging and so forth on this boat. So whenever something breaks, I can very easily figure out what's going on and find a way to fix it. If that's a boat which I don't know, there's so many things that can go wrong.
Well, same with car, right? When
Yeah.
you fly to, I don't know, Africa, let's say for safari, sure, you can rent one of those outfitted, you know, bumpers and winches and all that stuff. But it's not your car. You're not familiar. It may be, sure, it may be even more simpler than your car, right? Because they usually use those 79, 80 series cruisers, they're troopies and so on. But it's not your home. You're not. It's kind of like boat too, because like what makes it comfortable on this long journeys is you outfit whatever your modality of transportation to be like your home, super comfortable, like things that you actually need to feel comfortable. As a rental, you just get a thing, and it's not your home or a boat, right? It's you didn't outfit it like you wanted to exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Another option you have is actually some people would actually buy a boat, cruise some particular area in the world, let's say Caribbean or South Pacific, and then after they're done, I don't know what it takes them, like 6 months, a year, like 2 years, they just sell it right there without even moving somewhere across the oceans.
Same with cars too. When
Pretty
people
much so.
arrive Argentina,
And that's
they sell
how
it.
this market is actually kept. There's quite a few brokerages there, like dealerships, which would help people buy and sell boats. So you can just find a boat who somebody had enough play with already, and you can just take over and continue. Basically, again, you can spend a few weeks figuring out stuff there. You can outfit whatever you don't like, fix whatever is broken, and then just off you go. And then once you're done, you're ready to sell. Yeah, you can get your money back pretty much.
Provided you have big enough chunk of time to actually
Oh yeah, well,
do
yeah.
that. Yeah. Besides just go somewhere, to actually like spend some time getting it ready.
Yeah.
Same with car or whatever. Yeah.
It's not exactly a vacation already. We're talking about some sabbatical or maybe
Semi
like,
full time
yes,
basically. It's like,
exactly. It's a full time, but for a limited amount of time. Let's say maybe.
and
a year.
I bumped into some people actually even recently where a person would work, save up, and take a year off. Out of own expense. If your mind is set to it, it's doable. It's definitely something I think you and I kind of try to strive for, is to save up to experience some of those at least couple of months of journey experience. Like for example, I've done so far my longest road trip was like 2 months, but that's before my truck, before all that stuff. So I don't even consider it too much overland. It's been way too much highway and national parks. So as far as like what I would consider somewhat off-road overland trip, maximum I've ever done was a month. And this definitely taught me things, and taught me about my discomfort levels of things, how I set up my truck and what I wanted, and it's helped me. Like each new month trip helps me realize the kind of vehicle I want more in the future for my preferences, or how I want to outfit things. Same as you, like for example, you just recently did a whole month cruising around Calfans. Maybe you can talk about that on this sailboat.
Yeah, actually this summer I think I've done my longest sailing trip so far, and even longest time compared to my off-roading experience as well. I went around the whole Vancouver Island, and it took me a little bit less than a month, more like 3.5 weeks. But yeah, it was quite a remote and beautiful voyage. So that was my experience
And
so
this
far.
is where you got to experience open ocean, right? Because
That's
before
right.
it's been limited.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Vancouver, just for some of you who is not familiar with our details of geography, we're covered from the open ocean by Vancouver Island. So mainland British Columbia doesn't get those ocean waves or ocean weather. But once you start going around Vancouver Island, obviously you're on the exposed Pacific coast, and it's a completely different feeling. We're actually right now we're sailing also on the exposed portion close to the Fino, so that's what we're experiencing in winter right now.
But weather is super nice right now, super sunny, and we're in tiniest little bay right now, so it's nice and calm. But yesterday this guy was getting us through some rough ways. I even two of us, 2 passengers, we started feeling a little nauseous. Like we're not used to the seasickness. I had to take some pills. I thought I would be okay. Apparently, after several hours of just like, going like this, it's it gets tiresome.
Yeah, wait until tomorrow. We're gonna experience an actual open ocean.
Or going full force to the ferry, right? Basically.
Not to the ferry, but to the Fino.
Well, to the Fino, and then we need to get to the ferry, and it's gonna take us a whole day, and hopefully we make it to work the day after tomorrow, all of us.
Children in the field, like in the island of the universe. Now his love's a memory, a ghost in the fog. Sets his sail one last time, say farewell to the world. Anchor to the water, seabed far below. Grass still in his feet, and a smile with his brow. This is for long forgotten, light at the end of the world. Horizon crying, tears you left behind so long ago.
I love you guys. This is amazing.
The best!
One more
George,
song.
please contact him
more
on
song.
Instagram, like I said previously. So the type of emotions you experience on a long off-road trip versus, let's say, cruising yacht trip, do you get different feelings? Like, could you try to describe how they're different or how they are the same? Like, obviously there is some difference, and that's why you like one a certain way versus the other a certain way.
Okay, so when it comes to really long trips, I would say boating is my preference over vehicle-based travel for one simple reason. When you're starting building up all your comfort on a truck, let's say, it grows in size, it becomes heavier, and becomes less and less capable, eats more and more gas or diesel, whatever. Yes, this guy knows.
My truck.
So essentially you either keep it light and very basic and not comfortable for long-term living out of it, or you're losing capability. With a boat, it's completely the other way around. The bigger the boat you have, the more capable it is. The easier it to go through huge waves, so they're not as big compared to the boat. So you don't have that compromise. So you just kind of buy as big of a boat as you can afford. They'll put as much as you want in it, within reason, obviously. You don't put a jacuzzi, I guess, but you can put a small sauna.
Jacuzzi and sauna. Let's set up a sauna and drill a hole here. Yeah, it's next
Sure.
upgrade.
But yeah, the bottom line is that there's no such compromise when you're traveling on a boat, where you have to choose either you have a toilet or you'll be able to do some technical trails which you're really interested in. You can get into most bays, even with the bigger boats. It's at least in our grounds, it's not a big problem. So you don't have to compromise. Essentially, I was gonna say my most factor why I like boating long-term over off-roading or overlanding is because you can actually have a proper freaking toilet as opposed to going to the bushes, right? So that's important, especially when it's cold outside. I am
Again,
not a big fan.
Depends which rig. If you go for really expensive, like Unimog, expensive rig box, you could still have your toilet and the shower and stuff. Of course, you're bulkier. It's gonna be
You're
harder
compromised.
to
Yes.
get into like super technical trails. But I mean, it's Unimog. You can still do it. Like as opposed to my overloaded truck, it's a freaking Unimog. You can squeeze, you can cut trees if you need to. Whatever, you'll get there.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not possible. It's
Yeah.
just
More
it's really more organic with a boat to have more comfort, or let's say minimal human comfort as compared to vehicle-based travel. So for me, vehicle-based travel is probably more of an extended weekend, or maybe I can do a week or so. By the way, he didn't mention, I have a 4Runner, which is slightly modified, but mostly just is designed both for highway travel and off-road travel and certain minimal overlanding equipment to support myself. But normally my entire concept of travel with that vehicle is that I'm staying camping for a couple of days, but then I'll need a hotel or motel to just do laundry, take a proper shower, things like that, so I don't have to carry excessive things for that with me. So that's slightly different from a real autonomous trip, obviously.
And you could do it in your 4Runner, it's just you would become heavier, which would limit the amount
Yes,
of your affordability.
exactly.
So you're trying to actually do more off-roadier stuff.
Yeah, I really like to go somewhere out of the beaten path with my vehicle, so that usually includes going on some rougher roads where it's either too narrow to fit a fully built Unimog or even something bigger, or it's too soft, it's just gonna sink, something like that, right? So you're limiting yourself.
But one downside on the boating I noticed yesterday, and we talked about it, is if it's, let's say, if it's too windy, or let's say you're in the bay, right? But you wanna go on the coast and just explore, go hiking, whatever. Because you have to use a dinghy, you can just park the sailboat, very sure. So, and if seas are rough and you're in the bay, you're kind of stuck. You get there is some of those limitations.
Yeah, for sure. When it comes to boating, especially sailboating as opposed to power boating, you are very much at the mercy of the environment in many cases. You cannot just say, okay, I want to go this direction and I don't care, I want to be there today. Like, let's say I can cover this many miles as average per day, I want to go there. No, you have to look at the forecast and you have to figure out if that's actually doable, because you could be just stuck trying to fight the current and the strong wind and big waves. It's just not doable. The boat is just going to bounce in one place and not go anywhere. So it's all, you can plan around it. If you really plan all your passages properly, it becomes like way easier when you're trying to fight Mother Nature. Whereas with a vehicle, obviously you have more control. Well, it could be snowing or it could be like raining, but it's not gonna keep you from going places, right? So like in general, you can go wherever you want as long as there's some sort of road. Well, we're here, yes. Well, I would say like that example that you had about going ashore, it's mostly like for proper cruising, you just need a bigger dinghy with a powerful motor. Yeah, you'll get some spray on you, but you'll get what you want. But moving the boat itself against prevailing strong weather, it's not really fun, and it's often not even doable. So yes, that's a big difference. You have to mind the environment very much.
So if you had to choose one right now, someone told you, you have half a year off, you got the money, which one are you gonna go for? A big overland trip or a big coastal sailing?
It's going to be a hard one, that's for sure. But I think I will go sailing actually, yes, because I have a boat which is more kind of suited for long-term trip than what I have in terms of my vehicle right now.
Let's say you had a vehicle right now that's just as comfy outfitted as go. It may even have sauna in it, whatever. But which one would you choose? Both are super comfortable, just like your home.
It's hard. I don't know. I never drove one of those Unimogs. I cannot say.
Okay. Well, yeah. It seems like your preference is more.
Yes, I'm mostly like, if I were to choose just to keep one of these toys, I would keep my boat. Really, like I would hate to make this choice, but it's at the same time it's pretty obvious for me. It's more favorite baby of mine.
It is nice, baby, but it's missing the Russian sauna. Yes, we need.
It doesn't.
You could take away this little corner right here and convert it into like two people's sauna.
Dude, it has a sauna. If you fire up the heater, make it full tilt, and just open the vent in the bathroom, it's gonna be plus 40 there.
Yeah, but it's only plus 40.
Yeah, okay,
it's not the whole 90 or whatever. Yeah. So in the midterm to long term, what are like your ambitious kind of travel plans? You could just say about midterm first, but ideally if stars aligned and everything, what would be that sort of dream exploration long term, maybe in 15-20 years to come? You know, by the time you retire, basically, you probably want to do most of these things experience, because after that, obviously, you don't have as much energy to do those things and so on. So Could you just...
Yeah, so I guess the question was more about my plans for boating and stuff. So yeah, I have done around Vancouver Island. I still have lots of ground not covered on central coast of British Columbia, and I wanted to sail to Alaska at some point. Let's say, these trips are possible with this particular boat. Further than that, I would probably have to think about something more.
How long would it take
suited.
to Alaska in this boat?
That depends. If you just go for it, you can be there in a couple of weeks. It's not that long. If you just do
if you rush,
passages.
but obviously you want to
Yes.
probably take some of those narrows.
Exactly.
So what would be ideal time frame for something like this?
The entire coast is just a set of very, very nice anchorages, coves, inlets, bays, nice villages, some waterfalls, hot springs, you name it. So essentially you can spend unlimited time. Depends on how much do you want to spend. It's really, there's no time frame. You can be there in 2-3 weeks if you need to, but you can extend it to a year. I know some people. Just on my around Vancouver Island trip, I was anchored next to a guy from Netherlands actually, who's been doing from Alaska to here to Vancouver Island. I think he was on his month 7. So he was just...
time.
Yeah, no, he is actually a senior guy, and quite a few guys who do long-term cruising are. So you're not correct about when you retire, you're not able to do it anymore. You can.
It's harder. It's just harder because
You can do it. That's
People
what you do.
Yeah. But most seniors, like you can't foresee how you're gonna be or how I'm gonna be in 20 years. It's kind of hard to tell.
We'll be fine. I think that's what we're gonna be doing when we're actual old farts.
Yes, and I will be I will be sitting on some beach with my Unimog somewhere in Costa Rica. That's my retirement dream, not being a 4 walls for sure. And you would be on your 50-foot yacht by that time. 60. So he can load my Unimog on top of it and we can go sail across the world like a little barge attachable.
Yeah, dreams.
Ah, would be nice. Why don't we make boats like this? Definitely got to experience it now, and I do realize that my preference actually is overlanding. I do like that option to just walk anytime I want, to stop anytime I like, not have to deal with elements. Like how you describing it, it's to me it's too limited. It's just too limited. So thanks for sharing this experience with me and viewers, and I guess we're gonna see you on one of my other videos, some off-road trip, probably in May. With May, we're probably gonna go Chilcotin again or something along the lines, or maybe watch some bears, I don't know, in that area. Something like that.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks for spending time with me, and thanks for all the input.
Gonna make a beautiful video here. And yeah, if you guys want to see some more interviews in the future coming up like this of some people, and also some documentaries that I'm gonna start doing instead of like some of this vlogging, obviously hit like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you
Gear into adventure.
But he's single, so any ladies watching out there, what's your Instagram?
George Sukhanov, but you cannot really spell it from. You have to insert it.
Oh, okay, I'll have to insert it. Yeah, and Facebook same. You don't. Okay. So he's looking for for a partner to enjoy nature on the road.
Ну тогда же я с тобой не смогу это шесть. Что ж ты меня так сдаешь?
Почему? Втроем можно, вчетвером. Мы придумаем что-то.
Ну хорошо.